everybody for joining in for tonight's romantic suspense panel. I am looking forward to talking to Nancy Mehl, Patricia Bradley, and Lynette Eason. And hello, Patricia, how are you?
I'm
And
good. I'm here.
And I'm sure, yep, and there's Lynette. So look at that. We all did it.
Yay.
I am so glad you three could join me tonight.
We're glad to be here.
It's gonna be
Awesome.
fun.
It is.
You'll be running soon.
So awesome. So I'm going to start the way I always start and just ask you about your newest books. And so when I get to you, I will hold up your book, but you're welcome to hold up your book too. Please do not think anything I do means you can't do it. So, so let's go with Patricia first. Counterattack is your newest one, and you can tell us all about it.
All right. I will have to say I'm 2 books ahead. And so it's like, what's the name of the characters?
Oh.
So, okay, yeah. This is Counterattack, and it is set in outside of Chattanooga. It's the Cumberland Plateau, and no sooner has Alexis Stone been sworn in as the interim chief deputy for Russell County, Tennessee, than a serial killer dubbed the Queen's Gambit strikes again, this time in her hometown. Pearl Springs is just supposed to be a temporary stop along the way to Alexis' real dream, becoming the first female police chief of Chattanooga. But the killer's calling card, a white pawn, and a note with a chess move printed on it cannot be ignored. Pearl Springs chief of police, Nathan Landry, can't believe that his high school sweetheart, Alexis, he refuses to call her Alex, is back in town. He can't help wanting to protect the woman he never stopped loving. But as the danger mounts and the killer closes in, Nathan come through on the promises he makes to himself to bring a killer to justice before it's too late?
Sounds fantastic. Now it's part
Wonderful.
of the series. It's book number, it's the first book of the
Number
series. I was
1.
thinking it was book number 2. See, I'm ahead of myself too. So, but awesome. And is it going to be a 3-book series?
It's a 3-book series. I'm doing edits on the next one, Fatal Witness. See there, and it comes out in February. And then I have one. I'm working on the 3rd book, which I'm calling Deadly Vengeance. I don't know if I'll get to keep it, but that's what I'm calling it.
Sounds good. So let's see Nancy, yours is next. So Cold
I'm next. Okay, well, I'll read the back cover copy because that'll be better. It says, I don't know. Ex-FBI profiler River Ryland still suffers from PTSD after a case went horribly wrong. Needing a fresh start, she moves to St. Louis to be near her ailing mother and opens a private investigation firm with her friend and former FBI partner, Tony St. Clair. They're soon approached by a grieving mother who wants them to find out what happened to her teenage son, who disappeared 4 years ago. River knows there's almost no hope the boy is still alive, but his mother needs closure, and River and Tony need a case, no matter how cold it might be. But as they follow the boy's trail, which gets more complicated at every turn, they find themselves in the path of a murderer, determined to punish anyone who gets in his way. As River and Tony race to stop him before he kills again, an even more dangerous threat emerges, stirring up the past that haunts River and plotting an end to her future. Anyway, and I know what Pat was saying because I'm doing exactly the same thing you are. I'm editing the 2nd one and writing the 3rd one. So by the time you'd ask me what this is about, I'm going, I don't remember. So that's why the back cover copy comes in handy.
Agreed. And it's very good. I've read it and posted.
Well, thank you.
Yes, and and Lynette, yours just hit the shelf. So
yeah. So I guess I'll read my back cover copy too.
There you go.
All right. So a stalker who wants to finish what he started, a U.S. Marshal who's vowed to protect his charge, and one woman who's determined to put the past in the past. Flight paramedic Raina Price has been running so long it's hard to stop. To escape a dangerous stalker, she changed her name and disappeared, building a new life with the help of a friend from her time in juvie. It feels good to put her energies into saving people's lives, but because her stalker was never found, she's never stopped looking over her shoulder. And one can only run so far before the past finally catches up. U.S. Marshal Vincent Corelli's job is to hunt down fugitives and protect those who are assigned to him. When Raina is almost killed right in front of him, he vows to protect her at all costs, whether it's his job or not. Together, they work to solve the mystery of Raina's past, but someone is out to make sure Raina doesn't live long enough to do it.
Whew. Now we're
I'm
all
reading it.
awake all night reading these books. So
That's book 4.
right. So,
Yeah.
and this is book number, I didn't answer. This is book number 4 in a series. So,
Yeah.
is there going to be more in the series, or is this going to be the end of your series?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I do 4-book series, and it's because they release them every January, August, new series, January, August, new series.
That is good to know. We can now set our calendars just by Lynette's books.
Yeah, there you go. I have no idea why they wanted to do that, but we agreed, so that's what we do.
No, why not? We might as well. So, and then Nancy, this is your first one in this series, correct? The
Right.
Ryan and St. Clair, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, series galore. So, do you think mysteries, and see, I'm already going off script. I'm sorry. Do you think mysteries lend themselves better to series than standalones, or is it just because you like to write? I mean, all 3 of you do series, so you like to write in the setting for a while, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I like. I like a setting. One of my books, The Natchez Trace, I got to go down there, and till COVID shut me down. But I love going to where I'm writing the book.
Okay.
And my sister lives in Ottawa, which is just outside of Chattanooga, and so I go up there, and I knew the area, but it's an excuse to go see my sister.
Lynette,
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, that's all right. Lynette, you were saying something there too.
Oh, yeah. I was just saying, series, people get so invested in the characters. And so when you just write one book and the reader gets so involved in these characters and they want to know more about them, and then there's nothing coming after, and they're like, why did I read this book? It's like, so you have to give them something to look forward to, and that is the other characters that come to life while you're writing the first book in the series. And I always have more characters in my stories that I want to write about anyway. So series just works for me.
How about you, Nancy? Did you find that too?
Well, yeah. And I like a series. I guess I'm so long-winded that it takes me 3 books to do everything I want to do and say everything I want to say. But I think it gives us more time to develop our characters too. And just make their plot lines richer. We can do more with them. And I think people get more invested in them that way.
They sure do. So, no, and I like series. I do have to admit, there was somebody, I don't remember who it was now, that did like a 6-book series in this town, and there were murders galore. And I'm like, we really need to get out of this town. There's not going to be any left.
I think they call that
Henderson.
There's a term for that called the Cabot Cove syndrome. Yeah, with Jessica Fletcher, where everybody in the town was being killed off. They had to get her out of there. I mean, there would have not been any Cabot Cove left. So
yeah, it was either murdered or a murderer.
Exactly, right. Yeah, I don't want to ever live there.
So I often get asked here at the bookstore, and maybe you guys can enlighten me, because I know what I say, but it's nice to hear it from the authors. What is the difference between a straight up mystery and a romantic suspense? We can start, you know what, Patricia, if you want to go again, and then we'll go from there. So
for me, the straight up mystery, mine is a mystery, but it's also suspense, because you're trying to figure out who did it. And and I always give enough clues that if the reader is paying attention, they can tell, they know, they can figure it out, because readers love to try to figure out who did it. And so, and then a lot of times for me, it's the why. And a lot of times, I mean, if they figure it out by the end of the book, well, they did better than I did, because a lot of times I don't know who did it till the end of the book.
Well, that's awesome. So, Nancy, what do you think is the difference between like a straight up mystery and then a romantic suspense?
Well, I think the difference between mystery and suspense can exactly what Pat said, you know, the clues and the reader gets to solve it with you. Suspense sometimes is like Criminal Minds, you know, on TV, where you know who the bad guy is at the beginning, but how they catch him is the story and that suspense. Now, I love mystery. That's what I started out writing. And I think there's a touch of mystery in everything I write purposely, but Cold Pursuit, they know who the bad guy is from the beginning. So I like to break that up a little bit and try different things, but that's the main difference. And the romance, whether it's a lot of romance, which I don't do, or even a little romance, I think most mystery has that as well, because characters fall in love. I mean, it's just part of what happens. So
It's a lot easier to kill them off than it is to get them together.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's true.
If you don't like a character, just kill
going
him.
to use that.
That's good.
Well, how about you, Lynette? What is your feelings on that? Because yours are labeled romantic suspense also.
Yeah. So when I'm teaching a class at a conference, I often describe mystery as the whodunit. So the crime happens, the person's dead, and now the race is on to find the killer. For suspense, romantic suspense, obviously romance, there's romance in it. And the suspense is there was an attempt made, the person evaded the being killed thing, and now it's the search to figure out why, while there are more attempts being made to kill that person. And it's kind of a simplified explanation, I guess, but it works. And then, I mean, everything these guys said is, I really don't have anything to add to it, but that's just kind of how I explain it when I teach.
Yeah.
The protagonist is in jeopardy.
Mhm.
Right.
And that's what creates the suspense.
Okay.
Yeah.
That I didn't think of that. Yeah. And suspense, that protagonist is, whereas a mystery, they're solving a mystery. Something
Yeah.
may have happened to them, but probably didn't. So that makes sense. See, now I know something. I was this old and I figured that out. Okay, so all of you, especially in these new series that you're doing here, are writing about the variety of like a first responder or a government agent or a military person. I'm curious because you've all written a lot of books, which if you want a big backlist, pick up these three ladies because you're going to have a lot of backlists to pick up. So first I want to know, is there one of those, whether it's FBI or military or first responder, that's the most fun to write about? And then second, which was the hardest to write about, either because it was just a hard thing to write about, which is legit, or because the research was hard? So, Nancy, are you comfortable with going first this time?
Thank you for pointing that out. What was the first part of it? I wanted to write about an FBI behavioral analyst. That's what I always wanted to do. I used to read about profilers way before I ever had the chance to write about them. So my interest was always there. So does that have anything to do with the first part of your question? Anyway, but it was difficult. And thankfully, Lynette helped me by hooking me up with a retired behavioral analyst for the FBI. And I wrote Mind Games thinking, hey, I've seen Criminal Minds. I know how this works. So I wrote, my first draft, showed it to this gal, Drew Wells, and she said, no. So I had to rewrite that book. And it was difficult, and it still is difficult, even though I wouldn't want to be writing anything else, because the FBI, it's nuts. I mean, if you don't drown in the acronyms, everybody does something different. This person can't do that. There are 5 different kinds of behavioral analysts. It's on and on and on. So the research is very intensive, but I love research and I like what I'm writing. So it's worth it to me.
Awesome.
But it's hard work.
I bet. So how about you, Lynette? What is one, and Nancy answered it really well with one she really wanted to do. So favorite or one you wanted to do, and which was the hardest? Let's see.
So I agree with Nancy. Writing FBI is really hard. There's just so much to it. It's so funny because I had written a book. The very first book I ever wrote for Revell is called Too Close to Home, and it dealt with the FBI. And I was so worried because I knew there was stuff wrong with it, and I didn't know anybody to ask to read it and to get that feedback. Everything I had, all my research was on the FBI website, and I knew that wasn't accurate. I mean, yeah, the information there was accurate, but I didn't know if it translated well into the fiction story. And so I was at a writer's conference, and I had been praying, Lord, okay, I have to turn this book in like a couple of months, and I really need some feedback on this whole law enforcement procedural stuff. And so it's funny, at this writers conference, I was sitting in the lobby, was having a conversation. This man comes, sits down next to me, and we start talking, and I'm like, oh, so what do you do? And he's like, I'm a retired FBI agent. And I was like, you're also an answer to prayer. So let me tell you why. And so he read the story, and he came back and he goes, oh, this was really good. You don't write like a girl. And I was like, wait a minute, what? Is that a compliment? I'm not sure. But
Wait a minute.
So the friend that Nancy is talking about saw his name in the back of my book, me thanking him for reading it and fixing all my errors. And because there was a lot, like you, I had to rewrite that first book basically. And so Drew saw his name in the back, and she contacted him and was like, how do you get to do that? How do you get to read these? And so he told her and put us together. And then she just has this heart for teaching. She loves the Bureau and everything about it. And she has such passion for it. And she was very high ranking in it. So, it's just, she gives all the feedback, and she volunteers to read other stuff. So I just pass her name on to other offers.
Thank you, by the way.
Okay. But it is hard. It's hard. And because there's just these little details that, I don't know. It's crazy hard. And I just always put a disclaimer in there. If there's anything I got wrong about the FBI, it's not her fault. It's totally mine.
It's probably the safest way to do that. So
yeah, that's fun.
How about you, Patricia?
First of all, I do not want to write about the FBI.
Okay.
Too hard.
It sounds like it's very difficult.
I actually like to write, like one series is Park Rangers, and I was so dumb going into it. I thought all park rangers carried a gun. No, only the law enforcement ones do. And it's a very different. So there's a lot of research that goes into whatever you write, period. And I also like to write about like the female sheriff. Do you know there are very few female sheriffs in the United States? And so I like to do something a little different, a little bit that's not, well, I don't want to do the research yet for an FBI or a marshal that either, because I mean, to me, if you don't do the research, it's going to show. And it's just, I mean, we're not John Grisham. He can make it up, and people, it doesn't matter whether it's true. So, but yeah.
Well, and if you decide to write about the FBI, Nancy and I'll hook you up.
I will. Well, actually, I have used y'all's books for research because I knew you've done.
Oh,
probably, but probably
we got that right.
Probably the hardest book I have written is Justice Delivered, which was about human trafficking. And I think that is, I put it off. I knew when I started the series, Ravel is so good. I send them 4 things I'm going to write about, and it never turns out to be that 4, maybe the first one. And but I knew when I started the series, I wanted to write about human trafficking because I'm involved in it. Well, that didn't sound right. I'm involved with
You're involved in fighting it.
Yes.
Where are you?
Advocates for Freedom. We have an organization in Mississippi called Advocates for Freedom, and so I'm involved with that. And I'm friends with the people who started it, and when if I had time, I'd do a whole lot more. But research. We do so much research that I don't think people realize.
You know what? And I agree. So does anybody have, do you do research first and then start the story, or do you research as you go along?
Yes.
Okay. So
You're not supposed to do that. I never.
What? I research first. I research as I go along.
she does it all.
I do it all.
Does it all.
So does anybody do it differently, or do you, like you said, these are things you want to get right. The technicalities are what you're looking to get right. So do you mostly do the research as you go along then? Any one of you.
Well, when I wrote Cold Pursuit, what kicked it off was a friend, Karen Ball, was talking about, I never say this right, so synesthesia, which is a condition where the senses are all confused. In other words, somebody might see a food, but translate it to a color, or it just, it's so confused for them, and it's hard for them to translate life that way. And I thought that was so interesting. And so that gave me the idea of my bad guy. What if he had that besides other emotional problems? How would that affect him? So that little thing right there was the research first and then the book. And other times it's the idea first and the research, not all at first. But what happens is, if you're a pantser like I am, I'm not a plotter, I'm a pantser, that as I'm going along, the book will take a way that I didn't think of before, or a path I hadn't thought of. So then I have to stop and research wherever I am to get myself out of it. So I think every book is different.
Yeah. You too, Lynette, are you a pantser, or do you have it plotted out pretty good?
I turned into a plantser.
A plantser?
Let me write that down. How do you spell that?
Well, when I started writing all those years ago, I started out where I would just sit down with the laptop and just go. The characters, the story, everything were in my head. But my brain worked a lot better all those years ago. And now it's like I'll get the story idea and it'd be in my head for a little while, and then it just goes away. And it's kind of like, okay, so now I have to write this down so that I can remember it for later, what I was thinking, or what I was thinking about in the shower. Or the shower is great, y'all. I get the best ideas in the shower. And now I remember who told me this. They have this thing for you ladies. You can put this thing in your shower and actually write your ideas down on it while you're standing there in the shower, and it doesn't wash up. Anyway, okay, so I need one of those. But anyway, like all writers on the planet will buy this as soon as I find out. Somebody was supposed to text me. I need to remember who that was. Anyway, so research. Yeah. So now I have to write a synopsis for my story. I brainstorm. It's kind of stream of consciousness writing, da 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 da. But at first I do like characterization. I have to know my characters, because if I don't know my characters, I don't know how they'll react to situations and all this kind of stuff. So I could go on and on about that. But when it comes to research, I tend to be writing and realize, oh, I need to know more about this. And so I do track changes, or I am writing in Scrivener. And so I'll just make a note and comment, okay, ask Drew about this or whatever, and or research this part. And I just keep going. I try not to let that completely stop my writing.
Yeah.
But the problem is, if I keep going and I have it wrong, they have to go back and change everything. And so I try to get my research as I go, and I just skip on to something else and then come back to it. That doesn't have anything to do with the research, like a whole nother part of the story, until I get my answer for that part that I researched. So, yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like all three of you are kind of like, well, it depends on the book and the stuff, because you
That
got,
situation, yeah.
yeah, you know, you have to do that where it's like, what is, you know, X, and off you go. Like you said, I love that answer too, Lynette, where you said, you know, oh, I just realized I need to know more about X, you know, again. So, but
Yeah.
so Nancy, you touched on bad guys, and this was a question I thought of yesterday. So it's not on your list, and I really apologize for that. But
Oh, no.
I know it's not
I
an
have
easy
to wing
one,
it.
but
Okay. Okay.
so you guys, how do you write an evil person that is still very human? I mean, you all do. I mean, they may not be sympathetic, but they're human. You can see the humanness in them. So how do you keep that straight or good, or I'm not sure how to say that, but how do you keep that bad guy human? Does anybody
Well,
want to?
I thought you were asking me. I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead though.
Okay. Well, first of all, we can't make characters that are one-sided cardboard characters. Nobody is like that. But I think that everybody who ends up being a bad guy or whatever has a backstory. Nobody just is born that way, I don't think. Maybe some people, but yeah, I don't think. I think that they have things in their past that have caused them great hurt. And a lot of times the response to that is anger. And how does that anger present? And unfortunately, sometimes it's hurting other people. So I think you have to go back and show what caused that and make them a dimensional person, you know, a real person. And frankly, you know, somebody asked me one time, how much of yourself is in your characters? And I said, I'm in all of my characters. I mean, it's not that I've ever plotted to kill anybody, but and I don't plan
you
to.
know, we have confession night tonight, so
Yeah,
we know
not
what
yet so
Patricia's
far.
doing now. So.
But yet we've all been angry, you know, and we all understand anger. And although we may be able to control it, some people can't. So anyway, I hope that answers the question.
It does. Does anybody want to add to that?
I want to say, everything Nancy said, I was thinking. There's some kind of wound that this character has, but it's not just the bad guy. It's your other characters as well. The hero and the heroine, they all have this wound, the most painful moment in their life that we as writers, we have to determine what that is so that we can use that in the story in a multitude of ways. Not just for the conflict, but for the character arc, for changing and seeing that character grow by the end of the story. But also from that wound becomes choices. You know, we have choices. Everybody, and you see the hero and the heroine, they grow and they make choices that may not have been great at the time, but they do face that at some point in the story, and they make choices based on that most painful life moment, or the wound, as it's called. And for the villain, that villain made his choice to be the villain. So,
Right.
you know, it comes down to choices as well.
Good.
Yeah, and so because everybody can relate, anybody who's reading can relate to making choices, good choices, bad choices. They can relate to consequences because of those choices. And so, you know, I think when you make that villain relatable, in that you show how his choices led him to where he or she ended up at that moment in your story, then that's where the character's maybe not sympathetic, but definitely relatable and understandable, and you can see why you can see why he or she wound up there.
Right.
Interesting.
Good.
And actually, we all know this, the villain is the hero of his own story. So
That's good.
he's defending his position because he believes he's right. And even if he knows he's wrong, he's still defending it. And
He
he's
can
still
justify his actions.
justifying. He's justifying his
Good.
actions. And most of my time people kill because they're trying to cover up another crime. They don't want to get caught.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah.
And you know, one other thing I want to say too about that is we have to create relatable characters. That's how we engage our readers. I mean, if they can relate to our characters, good or bad, then they want to see the end of the story and they want to read the next book. But if they can't relate to them, we've lost them.
Yeah.
You know, why would they want to pick up the book again or your next book? So anyway, I think it's important.
And you want to know how a villain can get so angry? Think about a tax audit, an unfair tax audit. How you would react. Did you
I've had those
capable
thoughts.
of
Yeah.
thinking about killing somebody?
There you go.
Good point.
That's what, when I'm trying to put my emotions, that's what I do. I think of times when I have been wronged and my knee-jerk reaction to it, when someone has wronged me unfairly, you know, that I'm this perfect person now. I never forget my mother and I talking about someone. She said, you know, it's a shame they can't be perfect like us. But still, you know, I think a writer taps into, a writer wastes nothing, even
right.
anger that they've had, because I mean, because most of the time that's what's pushing a killer is anger.
That's right.
And if the injustice that's been done them, whether it's justified or not.
Yeah.
Good.
That is very good. That all three of you. I did have somebody ask while we were discussing this, have any of you written like that likable bad guy? Like, you know, we haven't given it away yet. We don't know who it is. And this guy is like really, you know, we want the hero. Have you done that?
In my edit, actually, the guy, he's very likable. He relates well with people, and he's a con. I mean, well, he's not a con in that he's trying to steal things, but, and I can't say what he does, but people like him. And so he's able to get away with what he does for a long time.
Did either Nancy or Lynette, did either one of you write one where the guy was?
Sure. It was more of the mystery though,
Okay.
where he seems likable and everybody likes him, but he has a secret. So sure, we've done that.
Yeah. I always like those because I get it. And I forget which one of you said that, you know, we like to read and figure it out before that. And yeah, that was one where it's like, how did I miss that? So it was just a question somebody had asked. So in your humble opinions, who is your scariest bad guy that you've ever written? One that like gives you nightmares yet? Either, I mean, whoever wants to jump in there. Oh, Lynette, you look like you.
No, I was trying to think because I mean we write serial killers, and I mean, I mean the guy just
Probably our last one.
okay, so the guy in Lifelight, I mean, you know, he was, you know, yeah, he was not a good person. I honestly think he's probably one of the worst villains I've written. I had a lot of people go, how do you sleep at night? And I'm just like, come on, go with imagination. But I don't even know how I came up with that. I heard about a drug that people were aware, but they could not, they couldn't respond or anything, but they were aware. It's almost like they were in a coma, but they could still know what was going on. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I want to use that. And so, But I know, I mean, a good person's not going to use it, a bad person is. And so I had to make it the serial killer who used it. But anyway, so I would say the villain in Life Flight was probably the worst in a while. The worst I've written in a while. Yeah.
I might agree with you on that one. That was a bit disturbing.
Yeah. I know. Sorry. But
Well,
think about it though. We're writing inspirational fiction, and you have to show how truly evil is in order to show,
that's right.
how great God is and how
That's right.
powerful and how
Right.
he can overcome the worst evil you could ever imagine. And so I was like, I want to show that.
Yeah.
I agree.
Either one of Pat or Nancy have one that kept them awake at night?
Not really awake at night, although this, I mean, I don't care. No, I think the Salt River Strangler in this series, he's not upfront, he will become upfront. But anyway, in the first book, he's kind of the secondary bad guy, but yeah,
Oh.
he's pretty bad. So yeah, I mean, that kind of bothered me writing that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had a psychopath, the one, like probably the very first psychopath I wrote, and the book quit on me, and it was because I had not put myself in her head, and it's because I didn't want to. But so,
I can't blame
and I'm
ya.
thinking, and so I start researching psychopaths. And one of the, we have a lot of psychopaths walking around that are not killers. In fact, I in the book, I asked this question. And I often, when I'm speaking, I ask this question: "You want to know how a psychopath thinks?" And everybody said, "Yeah." It's how you answer this question. You're at a funeral, and a guy you're a woman, and you're at a funeral, and a guy hits on you, and he said, "Y'all have a good time." And so he says, "I'll call you next week," and he doesn't call you. So you kill your sister. Why'd you kill your sister?
Because you're crazy.
No, so you have the funeral, and he'd come to the funeral, and you get to see him again. But that's the way a psychopath thinks. It's all about them. And in the book, actually, the psychopath was going to kill someone using insulin. Her aunt was a diabetic. Mm-hmm. Maybe she wasn't sure how much she needed to use, and maybe she would try it out on her aunt first. No, then she'd have to take her to the hospital, it would be inconvenient. So she didn't kill her, because it's all about the psychopath. It's all about what's convenient to them. And that's where you have to get when you're writing some of these villains, and most villains, is you have to get to the point of how do they think that how they justify, or how they just absolutely feel. It's all about them. And it's not about, it doesn't matter about anybody else. It's just all about them.
Well, they have no empathy for anyone else. And one of the it's not funny, I guess it's kind of scary, but it's one thing that's interesting, I'll put it that way, is sometimes they say that if you're in a room and say this is in law enforcement and they're interviewing somebody, the interviewer can yawn. And if the person they're interviewing doesn't yawn, you know how we all do that? You yawn, I'll yawn. They don't yawn. A psychopath won't yawn because he has no empathy. He has no connection to anybody else. I just thought that was so interesting. So yeah, they can't connect.
Yeah, me too.
Now she's gonna yawn to see if we all yawn. Watch out, you better. But yeah, she's right. They don't care about it.
And I'm interested because when Pat asked her question about why did you kill your sister, and the first thing that popped in my head was, I wouldn't kill my sister. I think I'm good.
All right.
Maybe that's the wrong answer. I don't know.
Oh, that was so good.
So interesting. Wow. I'm glad I asked that question because that just makes it.
Now you'll know how psychopath, you can always tell that story, and if somebody answers it the right way.
I'm a run. That's what,
Yeah, right. Yeah, get away from that person right away.
and don't go to any more funerals. So
Yeah, don't go anymore. That's it.
okay, so all of you write suspense. Now, of course, the new label being romantic suspense, of course. Is there another genre that you would love to write? And I have gotten all kinds of answers, so there's no wrong or right answers here. This is sheer curiosity on my half. So, yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to write a cozy, and I started it, and I got bored. So I quit. Now, and I actually wrote 2 sweet romances for Harlequin
Okay.
on their heartwarming, but they wouldn't let me kill anybody, so I quit that.
Okay, that's got to be the best answer. Who else got one?
Well, I used to write cozies, Pat, and hopefully they weren't too boring, but
No, I mean, no, it was not, there wasn't enough action. I was so used to the suspense that there
Yeah.
wasn't enough action to keep me engaged in writing the story. Now, I love to read
Sure.
cozies. I read them,
Yeah.
and I've read some of yours, and I love them, but for me to write them, it just
Yeah.
didn't have the, it didn't have
It,
the,
it
bang,
didn't have the
bang.
death count, right?
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
There wasn't enough blood and gore.
And it was the
That's
same way
right.
with the romances, the nothing but romance,
Yeah, I can't do
it
that.
was like,
Yeah.
it's hard to come up with enough stuff going on.
Okay, Nancy, how about you? What else would you write?
Well, I love science fiction. I'm a Doctor Who fan. And so, in fact, if you could see the pictures on my wall behind me,
Oh,
they're Doctor
yeah.
Who.
Yep.
And then on my shelf, but you can't see, there's a bunch of Doctor Who stuff. So I'd love to write it. Whether or not I could do it, I don't know. But I do have a Christian allegory that I've had in my head for years now. And someday I am going to write it. Kind of like a Pilgrim's Progress, but a little different. So I really want to do this sometime. Other than that, I just love killing people, so I'm okay.
Me too.
Can you kill people in an allegory or just allegorically you can kill people?
Just allegorically. Yeah.
Okay.
I have no idea.
That is interesting. I don't think anybody has ever said an allegory, so that is interesting. So,
Yeah.
and we are all eagerly at our house waiting for the new doctors. So, well,
Yeah, fingers crossed. I'm not sure. I
yeah,
don't know.
we'll see where they go with it. Ever since, and I'm sorry, we're rounding off on a rabbit trail that we do
Yeah,
not.
we're good.
I will.
Never mind.
Never mind. I'll email you later on that, Nancy.
Later. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Sorry about that. I got going. My daughter, that's a habit my daughter had made me do, so I apologize. We will not go that way.
Okay.
Glad I caught that one. So how about you, Lynette? Is there anything else? I feel like we've lost control here, but mostly it's my own fault. How about you, Lynette? What genre would you like to write in? Whew.
I had actually loved to write a historical.
Oh,
I love history. I've always been big history buff. I just never felt smart enough to write history.
Oh.
Yeah, but because you can still have a body count in a historical. So I could probably, as long as I could, like Jack the Ripper or something like that, I loved like the Murdoch mysteries, and I don't know if you've ever seen those Canadian show. I watched all 16 seasons, love it. So something like that, where you have a detective in history. It would still be law enforcement. It would still be, dead bodies and stuff. But and there'd still be maybe a thread of romance. But yeah, I've always kind of wanted to write a historical, and I'm kind of doing something interesting in the book I'm writing now, and not what you would call a time split. like some people write, but I do flash back and do some scenes in 1947. And so that's been fun. That's been
Yeah.
fun. Talk about research.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, we will look for your historical romantic suspense. Can we throw any other
Yeah,
words?
historical suspense, historical romance, I guess is the category, but you can have suspense in it.
Well,
The best
that's it.
part about historicals is it's now 1970.
Yeah.
I
So
know,
we have to do
right?
a lot of research.
Say that. No.
That's true.
I,
That's
you know,
true.
when she said that, I've always wanted to write a book set on the Natchez Trace back in the early 1800s. Before the steamboat. So I hadn't thought about that. Thank you. I used to have scenes running in my head through it, and I've always been fascinated with Meriwether Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
Because there was such a mystery about his death, and it turned out he mercury poisoned himself, or arsenic. He was taking mercury or arsenic.
Yeah, one of the
and
two.
It drove him crazy.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Mhm.
History is just fun to
Fascinating.
find things out about. I mean, it's
Mhm.
probably one of the things the internet has done for me is felt that need with, oh, you mentioned this. Well, let's do this. And then, off on a fun little historical trail you go.
And you know what's funny is I always thought I never want to write a historical novel because it'd be too hard. Then I sat here thinking, what am I talking about? I wrote about the FBI. If I can crack that code, I should be able to write historical.
Thank you. Thank you. Amen, sister.
There you go.
So all three of you can write your historicals now, and I will eagerly read them.
There you go.
I think it's Patricia Bradley that's got a historical mystery out, 2 books. I think the third is coming shortly.
I think that
It's a
market
murder mystery too. It's got the first one for sure. I'm trying to think of the second one. The body count's pretty high, so
I think the market is trending toward that a little bit.
yeah. Yeah. And when I think about it, because you guys are talking about the FBI, is history it's there. You just need to write the
Easy.
story around it. So maybe there's a little less research, but at least for the FBI, maybe. So
well, the way they talk, the things that they have around them that they don't have
That's
around
true.
them, the way they dress is so detailed. That always scared me, but I don't know. In retrospect, maybe I could do it. I don't know.
I think you can.
That's on the back burner for now.
Yeah. And I will say, the last panel we were on, we decided that anything that we could remember wasn't history yet.
Amen.
So we threw the 1970s.
Whoa. There you go. Okay.
I was 3 in 1970, so
Oh.
I'm good.
Okay, I don't like you anymore now. Oh man,
Sorry.
you're a baby. You're just a baby.
Oh, she was. Yeah. Well, yeah, I was a little older than that. So.
So I'm a baby here, huh?
Yeah,
You're
you
the
were.
baby.
So.
My daughter says I'm a
I'm
rebel.
not used to that.
Yes, I can remember when that happened to me too. Like it's that transition. All of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm not the youngest one in the room anymore.
Yeah.
So we got a little bit of time yet. So I want to ask this question because I love the different answers you guys, every author has given me different answers to it. What is the best thing about writing and what is the worst thing about writing? Whoever wants
Writing
to
and
go
writing.
first. Right. It's good and bad.
Deadlines. No.
Well,
Deadlines
I
are
won't
the
tell.
okay. I wrote that down over here somewhere. What did I write down? What's the okay. I'll go, I guess, since I found my answer here. Honestly, I think not being sure you wrote a good book. To me, that's the worst part.
Okay.
And the funny thing about that is every author I've talked to, we have no clue. We just don't know. I put out a book, I think this is pretty good and people like it, but it's not, And then I write one that's just, okay. And then everybody likes it. We just don't have, I don't know why we can't see our books. But anyway, not being sure that it's good enough. That's the worst part. And the best part is always when somebody emails me or sends me a letter and says something touched them in the book in a personal way or a spiritual way. That's it. That's, to me, that's the very best part.
Yeah. Anybody else want to add something?
The worst
No.
part of writing? No, I don't think anybody's ever. I really actually thought about that, but I agree with what Nancy said, because I call it author angst. And every time I turn a book in, I'm like, oh no, I should have waited. I shouldn't have turned that book in yet. I should have gone back through it one more time. I should. And it's always, and I sit down at the computer after I turn a book in, it's time to start a new one. It's like, can I really do this again? Every book. And then,
Everyone.
yeah. And it's like, okay, do I believe that God called me to do this or not? So, and I do. So, and then, that's probably, yeah, I would agree with that. Is the worst part. It's that emotion. It's an emotional thing.
It is.
If you're just talking about the process of writing, the worst part is probably just, I got to get my word count in today. When am I going to do this? Because life keeps interfering.
That's right.
You know, just doing that. But and the best part of writing is, you know, when you do make a difference in that person's life. That she's talking about, you get emails, and Nancy, I'm right there. I track with you. Those are perfect answers, and I'm right there with you on those answers. But and one of the other things is just that satisfaction of knowing when you have that book in your hand, and okay, you know, God, we did it again. And it was like, now you can put it into whoever's hands it's needed. So, yeah.
Amen.
Just that satisfaction, that and relief that you did it.
And it's over.
Relief.
Yes.
Every book I write, when I started, it's like, how do I do that again? How do I do this? How do I, you know, it's because I don't know, but, and it is the making a difference in someone's life. I received an email where someone had critiqued the book for me because she's a nurse, and I had a doctor. She'd been a nurse for 30 years, and my doctor was busy, so I was getting her to read it to help me with different things. And so I met her at a writers conference, and so I was going to give her to help for thank you. I was going to give her a craft book, and she says, "No, after I saw what you went through, I don't want to be a writer." But I was supposed to help you with this book because what your heroine went through is what I went through all my life. And your way, seeing how she handled it has changed my life. And I'm sitting there with tears coming down, reading her email. And I thought, that's why I write. That's the reason that I write, is that to show, I mean, because all books, the heroine learns something, but in inspirational books, it's more of how God helps you. The God is the equation rather than you pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. And so I think that's probably why we all write.
That's a great answer.
And those are three very lovely and beautiful answers. So, so thank you for that. Let me put all of you guys aside by make sure you read the comment from Amber. I'm going to read it to you. It's so strange to believe you all have such angst about writing, and our reactions being you write such great books. I love reading what you write and have a ton of respect for the gift on the inside of you. Thank you for your stories and faithfulness in telling them. So next time you sit at that blank page, remember that. We all do believe in you. So, but
thank you.
So that's going to be the last question. Here is the one I always like to ask last, because it's completely about you guys. Not that this all wasn't already, but so where can we find you? What social media? Do you have a newsletter? Any of that? Website, blog? You mentioned it all, because we know we can get the books at bakerbookhouse.com, that sort of thing. And then if you want to plug your next book, which I think all three of you now, we were discussing this earlier, have a pre-order up on bakerbookhouse.com for 40% off free shipping in the continent of US. So when they mention them, go order them because that is a heck of a deal. So Patricia, do
Better
you
than
want to go first?
Amazon.
Yeah, don't go there.
No, no,
No, I said it's better than a whole lot better than Amazon.
Yeah, don't go
yes,
there.
it is.
They probably don't have any anyways.
No, they don't.
So Patricia, where can we find you and what's your next book coming?
Okay, you can find me on all the social media sites as Patricia Bradley, but I connect best with my readers on my webpage, my blog. I have on Tuesdays, I have mystery questions. And this week, last few weeks, because of the edits, it's about this time, it's usually about dumb criminals, where I have 3 true dumb criminal stories and then I make up one. I haven't had time to do that lately. So I found this website and it tells about dumb laws. So this time it's 3 dumb laws and then I make up a dumb law. Well, that turned out to be almost as hard as the other because I make up a law and look at it. No, somebody's got it on the books. So, but I have a lot of readers and they comment and we have a good time on that one. And then on Fridays, I review books. I reviewed Nancy's 2 weeks ago. I'll be reviewing Lynette's probably next week because I may not review a book this week with these edits, but yeah, because I'll have yours read by then. Well, I will probably wait until, when does this come out?
I think in a week.
Huh?
I mean, it's on the bookshelves at Baker already, but I think
Okay, then it will be next week then. So, and I loved it. I get just as many views of my reviews of the books, or when I talk about that, it's not really a review. I just talk about them and why I like them. And so I'm getting quite a following on that, which just tickles me. And then the rest of it, I'm Patricia Bradley Books or ptbradley.com. And you can find everything you want there.
What's the name of your blog?
Mystery question. The mystery. I mean, my website is ptbradley.com
Okay.
and my blog is on that website.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome.
Oh, and my next book is Fatal Witness, and someone's trying to kill a witness who doesn't remember anything, but they are afraid that she will remember.
Ooh.
Ooh. And when does that release? Do you know?
February 2nd, the first, what is February? I don't have February up. February 2nd, it's on a Tuesday, always on a Tuesday, and I think it's the first or second Tuesday.
By the way, if you go to bakerbookhouse.com and look it up, it'll give you the release date. So.
And there's 40% off.
Right, and free shipping.
And free shipping.
Free shipping.
How many times can we get that in? Nancy, how about you? Where can we find you in your next book?
Well, nancymehl.com, and there's a place there to sign up for my newsletter.
We have
the only blog I have is with Pat on Suspense Sisters. So I think if you just look up Suspense Sisters, I think it's suspensesisters.blogspot.com. And we have, there's 9 of us all together.
I think so.
Suspense authors. So yeah, come and see us and we'd love to see you there.
We do a lot of different things on it.
Yeah, we do.
You never know what you're going to find there.
Could be anything. And my next book will be Cold Threat, and that comes out in January. That's the second in this 3-book series. You can get it at Baker Bookhouse for 40% off and free shipping. So
I've heard that. That's awesome.
Did you?
Oh, I have definitely lost control. So how about you?
You lost control when you hit record.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, who knew? So how about you, Lynette? Where can we find you and what's next?
Okay, so you can find me on, like everybody else, all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I don't know. I'm not on Threads yet. If you're on Threads, I'm not on Threads yet. I haven't made that jump yet.
3
is about all I can keep up with. And so my website, LynetteEason.com, is very simple. If you don't know how to spell my name, look at the book. Just have one N, two E's in the middle. It's, it can be more complicated. So, and so there you go, right there, LynetteEason.com. And that one, I don't know if it's still up for pre-order or not, but you can get it at Baker Book House for 40% off and free shipping.
That's right.
And since its release date is next week, it probably is still on a special.
It might be. Go get it. And so next is the next book that releases will be January 2nd. It will be the first one in the new series. It's the Lake City Heroes series. It's a fictional town set in North Carolina, and the first book is called Double Take.
Ooh.
And it's about a woman who's thought her abusive fiance was dead, and then she winds up starting to see him everywhere and thinks she's going crazy. So you have to read the book to find out if she is or not.
Oh. I was hoping you'd give us the whole book.
Yeah.
No, go to bakerbookhouse.com and order it.
Yes, 40% off and free shipping. That's right.
I'm just going to put this on a loop in the store.
Absolutely.
Well, I hate to say it, but our time is over, and this was so much fun. It's very hard to say, but this much laughter while talking about murder and mayhem is awesome.
And a little twisted, but it's okay.
Yeah,
We are twisted.
we did find out we're not all psychopaths, so that's good.
Shoot.
Well, you know what they say at the ACFW conference? Brandon Lynn Collins does the MC, and she gets up there and says, "We're in a hotel. Remember, we're in a hotel. Do not scare the normals. Don't talk about how you're going to kill your character on the elevator with other normal people from the hotel on there with you. Yes, don't scare the normals."
Okay. We will try not to scare the normals
I
next
love
time.
that.
We didn't do so well this time, but
My new motto. I love it.
yeah,
Don't
we're
scare
all
the
going to get that
normals.
on the shirts.
That's right. That's right.
Don't scare the normal.
Oh, this was so much fun. It really, really was. I am
It's
so
great,
glad
Chris.
the three of you could join me tonight.
Great.
Consider this invitation that if you are in the Grand Rapids area, make sure you stop in and say hi at the store. And if you have time, we would love to host you here too.
Love to.
But thank you for joining us, and
You
we
bet.
look forward to those next books. Keep
Thank
writing.
you for having us.
We like what you're doing, so make sure you
Thank
do.
you for putting us together, because it was fun.
Yeah. This was great.
Yeah, this was
I
great. We might have
enjoyed
to do it
this.
again.
It wasn't as painful as I thought at all. It was a
No.
lot of fun.
2 thumbs up.
Yeah,
There you
2
go.
thumbs up. Oh, good.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, so seriously, and all of you that joined us along with us and in the chats and stuff, thank you very much for joining us. It just made it a lot more fun for us too. So, so you guys all have a good evening, and we'll see you all
Thank you.
soon. Bye now.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye.